Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Read the Room podcast. I'm Chandler.
And I'm Alyssa, and this is a podcast where we talk about books, relationships, and relationships in books.
It sure is.
Today we're going to talk about Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which, spoiler alert, is Chandler and my favorite book of the core four.
It's not really much of a spoiler.
I know, we've been talking about it all the other books.
It's like at the very end of Carrie Soto, like there's a little line like, by the way, this is
it's
Alyssa
funny.
and Chandler's favorite book.
It's funny though, because like I've been listening to a lot of different podcasts and I've been watching a lot of TikToks. Carrie Soto is not a fan favorite and we loved it. Like I don't understand how people don't love it as much as we love it.
It's because we're both such jocks at heart.
Yeah, that's us.
Honestly, I think that might be
For you.
why Carrie Soto is a bit polarizing in the TJR community.
Really?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is a sports story, and it focuses on the sports story way more than it does anything else.
I don't really like sports. I'm not a sports gal. I have played tennis with you, actually.
Oh, God,
In Calgary, we played.
What's a book that you're reading or have recently read that you'd like to touch on?
Yeah, so I actually just finished this morning a book called You Again by Kate. It's by Kate Goldbeck. It was a Book of the Month pick, in case you guys don't know Book of the Month. It's a monthly subscription, and it just came to Canada last year, and it's epic. This is not sponsored. I just really love Book of the Month. Not that we have any sponsors ever, because we have no episodes out as of right now.
Well, one day.
But
soon.
the joke is we keep talking about being sponsored and we don't even have an episode out.
I don't know if you had to explain that to everybody.
Well, because anyways, it doesn't matter. Okay. So You Again, the best way to explain You Again is it's a retelling of Harry Met Sally, except for the main protagonist, Josh. He is like Carmy from The Bear, if anyone's seen The Bear on HBO, but he looks like Adam Driver. So it's like a fanficky vibe of like Kylo Ren and Daisy Ridley. What is her character's name? Star Wars. I want to say Rey. No, he's Kylo Ren. She's Rey.
Oh, wait.
It is Rey. So it's like
Okay.
Kylo Ren and Rey. That's who but it's When Harry Met Sally, but also it's like I'm throwing a lot of things at you, but put those three ingredients together and you'll get this book, You Again. I was really hesitant to read it, and I didn't want to pick it with my Book of the Month in September because the reviews were so polarizing. They were like 1 stars and 5 stars. So I was like, okay, it's giving normal people, like people either love it or absolutely hate it. And I was like, I'm just going to take a risk and I'm going to try it. So naturally, I'm one of those people who absolutely loved it. But it's a contemporary romance book, except for it doesn't follow the same typical cookie cutter. Oh my God, I punched the mic. Cookie cutter formula that like contemporary romance usually follows. It's like, it's very true to what it's actually like to date in 2023. So they make mistakes, they fuck up, they have their own mental health issues. It's like very accurate. So, and there's times where you don't like any of the characters, that they're like annoying you, but that's genuinely life for me. So I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like those books are more authentic. But when an author has the audacity to write what real life relationships are like, people are like throwing fists in the reviews on Goodreads, which I find just so interesting. But this book, in my opinion, is excellent. I think everyone should read it. It's also gave me, and I haven't heard anyone say this yet, but it gave me, if anyone's ever seen Schitt's Creek, how, not Schitt's Creek itself, but how they touched on LGBTQA plus in that storyline. It wasn't like a conflict that needed like a resolution in the storyline. It was like they didn't use that as a conflict. Like he had to overcome people bullying him because he was, there was no story like that. It's just a fact. She is bisexual, the main character, and it's just, and then just move on. Like there was nothing around it. There was no like jealousy. There was no issues. There was nothing. It's just like, it's a part of the book. I'm not doing very good at describing books today. I'm just going off in circles. But you should read.
That's why we got a podcast.
You should read. I had to turn around to remember the book name because I have such a bad memory. You Again by Kate Goldbeck.
That sounds very interesting.
Nice. It is. I actually think it would be a good book to talk about on here at some point, but just not yet.
Yeah. Speaking of good books to talk about on here, what?
Smooth transition.
Oh, thank you. One of the books I read recently is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, by Gabrielle Zevin.
Yeah, it's a woman.
It sure is.
I thought it was a man.
Like, by the name or by reading the book? Or just that it's like about video games and that's been like a male-dominated industry for so long.
I think because Ready Player One is like the closest comparison to me, and that was written by a man. I don't know. I think I just read it and went, "That's a man."
Because the one other video game book,
yes, thank you.
Yeah, well, this one was not, and it is lovely and so good. And I'm sure that we're going to talk about it.
We have to
at some
so
point.
Good.
But I'm just jumping the gun because I want to talk about it myself. But
what's it about, Chan?
It's about the video game developers and how they started, and you basically follow them from their childhoods into their like, not like late adulthood, but you know, their 40s.
Follow their relationship.
Yeah, you follow their relationship, which is very interesting too, because it remains like quite platonic all the way through. And yeah, there's like some. Well, we don't do spoilers here.
Yeah, never.
on the intro stuff. No, it's a friendship first and foremost, but it is topsy-turvy. I mean, there's decades worth of drama and situations, and my goodness, though, there's one part of that book where I cried like I haven't in years.
Oh, what part? Now I want to know.
Well, I'm not gonna spoil things.
Tell me after.
I feel like people who have read the book should probably know the part.
Can't remember.
Oh man, yeah, it was a lot, and it was great, and it was definitely a 5-star for me. And I felt when I was reading the book that, and I know we keep talking about our rating systems, but it was the kind of book where I was like, I'm so glad that I am stingy with my 5 stars, or like where my 5 stars are rare, because this book is so far above so many other books that I do enjoy and thought were very well written and like would otherwise have been 5 stars if it wasn't for them not having that extra something. It just really hit me, that book. So go read Tomorrow ×3.
I remember the sad part now. I literally Googled it. I had to.
Yeah, you know.
I do know,
right?
and it makes sense.
Yeah.
That checks out.
So with that bumming things out being said. Oh man!
Just kidding.
Alyssa's leaning her head against the microphone.
Did I even start our video? Yeah, I did. Okay.
Yeah, I did too.
Okay.
So yeah, go check out those 2 books. But also, I mean, I hope you've checked out Carrie Soto is back, baby.
Yeah.
Because we're spoiling all of it.
Okay, so I'll give a little synopsis of Carrie. So it's by the time Carrie retires from tennis, she is the best player in the world has ever seen. She has shattered every record and claimed 20 slam titles. And if you ask her, she is entitled to every one. She sacrificed nearly everything to become the best, with her father as her coach. But 6 years after her retirement, Carrie finds herself sitting in the stands of the 1994 U.S. Open, watching her record being taken from her by a brutal, stunning British player named Nikki Chan. At 37 years old, wow.
That Nikki Chan.
Yeah. At 37 years old, Carrie makes the monumental decision to come out of retirement and be coached by her father for one last year in an attempt to reclaim her record. Even if the sports media says that they never liked the battle axe, that was her nickname.
God,
anyways.
That's such a cool nickname.
Even if her body doesn't move as fast as it did, and even if it means swallowing her pride to train with a man she once almost opened her heart to, Bo Huntley. Like her, he has something to prove before he gives up the game forever. And that was the little synopsis I took from Goodreads.
Carrie Soto's
so
back!
excited.
Let's go. We've been referencing this book in the 3 past Taylor Jenkins Reads episodes that we've done. And if you haven't listened to those, I mean, do so eventually, but maybe stick around here because this is going to be
a good
the best of them all because we both love Carrie Soto, and it's both of our favorites.
Yeah. What did you think of the book, like, in total? And what did you rate it?
I also gave it 5. I gave this one 5 stars.
Better have.
Yeah, absolutely, I did because it just. And maybe it's the fact that I've been in sports all my life and just that jock in me. But man, what a sports story. Carrie is also just so fun and mean and like
Is she mean though?
Oh, she's so mean
I
all
don't
the
think
time.
she's mean. I think she just is Carrie. She's just her, and she's unapologetically herself. And in this society, it comes across as mean for a woman to be that way. But she's never actually out. She's never done anything mean. Like, she's not pushing other players or being like, "You're a piece of shit." Wait.
Yeah, wait a minute.
Wait, she does have times where she's like, even at a young age, she's like, "Get better." She like does.
Yeah,
say it
she's
so mean.
blunt, sure, and
I
yes,
know, that's
obviously,
sweet.
like
she's honest.
I'm sure that like she takes more flack for it as a woman.
Yeah, I just don't know if mean's the right word.
They named her the Battle Axe.
I fucking love it. So Carrie, obviously you loved her. Love her. She's alive, I assume, in our hearts. She didn't die in the
Our
book.
hearts, our minds.
Spoiler.
Our thoughts.
What do you think of Carrie? Like, if she was a famous tennis player right now, would you love her as much as?
Like, I don't watch tennis, and
Oh
I
my
feel like
God.
if a Carrie Soto came around, especially her comeback
Yeah,
time,
I'd be so into it.
yeah, because like it's got the underdog factor, it's got the comeback factor, it's got like the like a big world record championship factor.
Yeah.
It had so much more than most sports stories ever even give you. It's like, oh yes, there's the big game, but no, this is
I
like
loved
legacy.
it. And a lot of people, I can't. Have I already talked about it here? That a lot of people hated this book.
We talked not in this episode. We
Oh,
talked
okay.
about the end of last episode to lead people into this one.
Yeah, so to prepare for us starting a podcast, I listened to a lot of podcasts, and I listened to a lot of podcasts about books, and it was really interesting to me because I listened to quite a few about Carrie Soto, and people just hate this book. Like, it's so funny to hear them be like that they hated it. They hated the back and forth tennis. They hated that so much of the book was tennis, whereas I loved that, and I'm not a sports girly, so like I was shocked how much I genuinely adored the game aspect of it and the competitive nature of it. I thought it was so good. And Chan, I think you really loved this one obviously as well.
Yeah, and like I'm
Not
not
sportsy though.
I am sportsy, and I read contemporary romance novels.
Damn right you do.
But it was, maybe that is why of the Taylor Jenkins Reid's books, so this is the one that I gave that coveted 5-star to.
Also, it was just excellent writing.
Yeah. Yeah, but I can understand why for people who exclusively read contemporary romances,
Yeah.
it might be like, this isn't the book.
Technically, this
that-
isn't really contemporary romance.
I
We
know,
talked about
I know.
that. But still, yeah, you're right.
But I feel like people who do read contemporary romance will read Taylor Jenkins Reid because she does a great job.
And then it is sportsy.
And she has written contemporary romance, right? Like
Totally.
everything pre the core four
Yeah.
that we've talked about on this podcast so far were like straight up contemporary romance.
Yeah.
So she carries with her such a readership into her historical fiction side of things.
Yeah.
So there not being very much romance in this at all.
Oh, there's so much romance in this, and I
Well,
love
there
it.
is,
It's just
but
not spicy romance.
and it's definitely not at the forefront. The forefront
No.
is her love of the game.
Yeah, her
baby.
relationship with tennis is the biggest relationship in the book, for sure.
Yeah, and her relationship with tennis, her dad's relationship to tennis,
And-
her dad's relationship with each
And then
other
her
and
and
tennis.
Bo's relationship, and then Bo's relationship to tennis, and Bo's relationship with her dad. There's like a lot. But before we jump into all of those, I think we should talk about the fact that this book is missing a relationship. It's Carrie's relationship with her mother, because her mother died when she was a baby. And so I wanted to touch on that because even from a young age, Carrie was alone, that sounded weird, but she was with Javier, her dad, and Javier loved tennis, and he told her that she was going to be the greatest player of all time from a very, very young age. And she believed it, and it actually created this like dynamic of her needing to be the best.
Does the mother have a name? I hate
The mother?
just
I
not
know, I
having a name
can't
for
remember.
the dead mother.
I know, I forget.
Well,
Carrie's mother.
I feel like in the absence of Carrie's mom, the two remaining, Javier and Carrie, almost not replaced her, but filled a bit of a void with tennis, because they went in so hard on it. And yeah, Javier was already like big into tennis, but
Yeah.
here's a way for me and my daughter to, get past.
They connected over tennis, and it kept them close, for sure.
Yeah, but to do so at such a level, to be so dedicated, I feel like it kind of had to be a little bit more than just the love of tennis. And I think it was kind of in the absence of
Totally.
the mom, and both of them going through that, they can channel.
They made it their
that
entire
energy.
personality almost as like a child growing
And
up.
we'll get there, but I feel like Javier realized later, like, that was a mistake. We shouldn't have been like so.
Yeah, was the drive
Intense
healthy?
about
That's
that.
a really
Yeah.
good question, because yeah, like for sure that drive inevitably became the downfall between Carrie and Javier's relationship. Her first time around going for the title of best tennis player. I don't remember the actual title, but
The very best that no one ever was. I think
yeah,
is the
I think it was
official-
beating the slam records or something.
Yeah.
I can't remember how
Oh,
you get
it's
the
like
title.
number one. Like, yeah,
'Cause
there's
she
like
didn't-
rankings. So number one in the world.
Yeah, I think because
on the
before
rankings.
Nikki Chan, there was somebody else. Stepakova. The name is coming to me.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm trying to say? It was
I can't remember her nickname.
it was
but
like and it was the girl who kept hurting herself, and then Carrie forced her to keep playing. This was like her first time around before Nikki Chan. And this one chick, I think it's Stepanova. I
Yeah.
think that's honestly the name.
I think that is the actual name of an
Yeah.
actual.
Tennis player? Probably.
Okay, well, let's just look this up.
Yeah, you look it up while I say this. But anyways, so she was going against Stepanova for that title, and she could never get it with Javier as her coach. So she ended up taking on a new coach that wasn't her dad, which completely destroyed her relationship with her father that she had built. And then her dad warned her out of a father place, saying, hey, don't sign with this guy, essentially. Like, you need to be careful of your knees as you're aging. And the dad was right. She ended up doing all this stuff with this new trainer and pushing herself so she could beat Stepanova. And she ended up fucking up her knee, which is why she had to retire.
It is Paulina Stepanova.
I was
you were
right.
Correct. Yes.
Oh my god, I'm a genius. I didn't even have that in my notes. I'm just so fucking smart. But yeah, her drive, I don't think it was very healthy. I think that Javier is the exact opposite of Mick Riva as a father. If we're gonna reference our last podcast, Malibu Rising, in the previous book in the Core 4, Mick Riva was so hands off, and he was the exact opposite kind of father. As Javier was so there in every part of Carrie's life and only wanted her to be happy in the end and wanted her to be successful. I just thought that was a really interesting dynamic between parents.
Yeah, we love Javier.
Oh, I love Javier.
Lars Vandenberg was the coach from the late 1970s who would get her jumping a bit more, which was bad for those knees, Carrie.
It was how she was landing. It was how she was. He had her. It was a certain way she was tweaked her serve that had her landing on certain cements. Because some courts were different, if you remember.
Oh, and I loved how like there was a different dynamic for the different court styles.
Oh my god, so good. Because she was like good on certain courts. It was like the red or something, which she was
The
like
clay?
The clay. Yeah, the red ones. Yeah. Also, side note, while we're talking about all of these dynamics, another relationship I just quickly want to touch on is Carrie's relationship with other athletes. Carrie had no fucking time to make friends with the other athletes, and I'm just curious, why do you think that is? Like, she had no friends, and they were all sort of friends in the like world championship or whatever you're calling it. Like, they all knew each other, and then they just called her the battle axe, and that she didn't even talk to them.
I do wonder if it was her thinking that it gave her a bit of an edge where everyone's being like too nice to each other. So like on the courts, you might be a little less ruthless, and she knows that she needs to be ruthless. But I do also think maybe it is just her personality in a way. Like, I think that she never really had much of a ability to get along with people very well, and that's fair. You know, some people aren't quite as charismatic just off the jump.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, it might have been a way of keeping walls up or defending herself, because I think that she knew she would have had a hard time making friends, even if she were trying to make friends and be nice and all that, because again, like, that just isn't really who she is. So she also didn't want to like be fake or come across as
there was
fake.
no fakeness in her. She couldn't be
So
fake.
I think that she just leaned into the battle axe side of things.
Yeah. I think like with her too, and I think this is a testament obviously to TJR's writing of women just in general, is she wrote Carrie Soto like the most successful male tennis player, where he is there to play tennis, not to make friends, and nobody would question that. And there was like there was a quote from the book. She says something like, no matter how good I was on the court, I was never good enough for the public. It wasn't enough to play nearly perfect tennis. I had to do that, but also be charming, and the charm had to appear effortless. No man would ever feel that way if they were the best in the world, to like get along with the other people, to get along with the sportscaster. And she was portrayed, I feel like Taylor wrote her to be exactly like how a man would react to being the best in the world. That's what I think, but I don't know actually for sure, but that's sort of what I took from it.
Yeah, I think that might have actually been in there at some point too, especially when it came to Bo Huntley, which I know that we'll get into a little bit more.
Yeah.
Where he, you know, he would flare up, he'd show his temper. He
had such a temper.
And it was normal. And I think I remember Carrie Soto being like, "Oh, if I were to ever like smash my racket, it would be this huge,
oh my God,
intense thing."
Yeah.
But at the same time that Carrie Soto is worried about all that, she also is worried about like showing her emotion in the other regard of like being overly happy or excited or crying on the court after winning.
Yeah.
She's like stifling all emotion in a way.
Yeah.
So to everyone, it feels like here's
it's oppressive, like she said.
Yeah. But again, like, I think that does come from a place of knowing that the media, the tennis world as a whole, like, the game is so different for her than it would be for Bo Huntley.
You're right, though. It does say in the book, it says, why do I have to be nice when most men aren't? She, like, actually quotes that and asks that in the book because nobody liked her because she wasn't nice. But why? Men aren't. She shouldn't have to be. I just loved it. Okay, what did you think of Bo and Carrie's relationship?
I thought it was nice. I thought it was
nice, cute.
That was nice.
It wasn't even the best part of the book, and that was the romance part.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point.
But they
though,
started
right? Like,
as it was very much enemies to lovers because they had hooked up in the past. Her first time around, didn't they? They'd hooked up, and then there was like a miscommunication.
Yeah, and let's go back to Carrie's first. I mean, you're saying first time around, but really, it was like her main. Like her
not her comeback, her regular.
Yeah, her regular season, her career. Yeah.
It's hard to word though.
That is true. And I feel like with Bo and with other men that Carrie was with during that time, she kept those walls up the same as she did on the court, not showing emotion.
Well, she shut it down before it even had a chance. He corrected her later, and he was like, "No, I wanted your number and I wanted to call you, and you just left." And assumed I wouldn't.
I know, yeah. I think she just got so used to, and she also like, she knows that she's the very best at tennis. Mm-hmm. But I'm pretty sure I remember her having like not the best view of herself.
No, she calls herself ugly all the time in the book. Like she calls herself unattractive, and she says that throughout the book. And she's and I think because she was quite muscular, and back then, remember, it was like most popular for women who were like anorexic. Because what was it, 90s, right? 80s, 90s?
Yeah, the comeback was in the 90s, so this would have all been like, I think late 70s and then 80s.
I don't think it was a 10-year wait. I think it was, I'm going to Google it. Sorry, you keep talking.
I can understand her having those walls up when it came to any sort of relationships that happened during her regular professional tennis career, because she's thinking, oh, you know, like, I mean, who would want me for more than just this? But yeah, she kind of shoots herself in the foot there, because again, with Bo Huntley, he wanted to hang out, he wanted to get her number, but
Bo really liked her. She was in 1989, she was 31 and she retired, and then she came back for 1995.
Gotcha.
So she was only retired for 5 years. But yeah, like I think like even if you think of society at that time, her body type would have been the exact opposite of what was popular at the time, which is absolutely insane that women have body types that are popular at certain decades. Yeah. But that is real. Like that's actually what it was. So yeah, I think that also had a lot to do with her image of being this like very strong athlete.
And that's why she had to keep those walls up, those defenses up, even when it came to romantic stuff, it seemed.
And then, so she had that situation with Bo on her like regular, when she was the best. And then when she came back, she was partnered up with Bo by her publicist or her manager. I forget what that word is that girl was called.
Yeah, just to hit around.
Because no other female player would play with Carrie.
Yeah.
Which is wild if you think about it, because they all thought she was like far expired. Her coming back into the game, every sportscaster, they called her a bitch. They said, why is she coming back? They said awful, awful things about her. And nobody believed in Carrie, which made her, ironically, after she was the best in the world, the underdog, which was really interesting and probably why we rooted for her so much.
We love an underdog story.
So, but yeah, their relationship starts blossoming first into friendship. I think they're both really honest with each other about their tennis game, which helps them. I don't think that either of them would have done so well if they hadn't teamed up. I think they actually really helped each other.
And they're both very much in the same position, too.
Totally. And they're both older.
I don't think Bo was making a comeback himself. He was just
he had never left the game.
Yeah, he was just on the outs. He was getting older and trying to change his own game up and like staying in it.
Well, he wanted to have one good last season.
Yeah, and
he resented Carrie for leaving and retiring, remember? If you remember, the quote is, "You left," he said, his voice rising, and then he shakes his head and laughs at himself. "You hurt your knee, you lost a couple of matches, and you gave up. That's what you did. You're saying we're the same, but we're not. I stuck around. I had the guts to try. I had the guts to lose. You just ran. Well, guess what, Carrie? People who actually play the game lose. We all lose. We lose all the time, and that is life. So we are not the same, Soto. I have courage. You're just good at tennis."
Oh, damn, baby.
Their relationship is really interesting because they view the game differently, too. He actually respects the game, and she's just the best, is how it's kind of perceived.
Well, I mean, that was such a big bit of growth for Carrie Soto, especially at the end, how, spoiler alert, she loses at the end, but is still happy, is still glad to have done it. Yeah, exactly. That's growth. And so much of that must have come from Bo, showing her, hey, we all lose, and it's a part of the game, but you gave up.
Which Bo is honestly, for me, the voice of reason in a way. Carrie being if I lose, it's the absolute worst thing in the world, is just I think that has to do with you will be the best. Javier putting that into her head at such a young developmental age. And then, I mean, obviously we talked about this, but Javier realizes that was an error. But it's so ingrained in Carrie that she actually loses almost the love for tennis along the way. Whereas Bo hasn't. They're polar opposites, showing you either side of true athletes in tennis.
I do wonder, too, if this is a bit of a gender swap for TJR, where it's this... fierce main character, and then you bring in a romantic interest, in this case Bo Huntley, who sees... Solid
name, too, Bo Huntley. I think about that all the time.
Who sees the game differently and is there to help Carrie along her journey, and doesn't really have too much of his own thing going on. Sure, He's a famous tennis player. He is a famous tennis player, but as far as character development and whatever, he always seemed pretty solid. Totally. He's kind of on the outs, but he just wants that one last season. He
just wants one good season of and he wants to create good tennis. That's he genuinely just loves the sport. He's not coming back for a Grand Slam title like Carrie, or a record.
He didn't need to grow in that. He grew in his tennis ability.
But he also was able to let go of the sport at the end, because he does retire. They both do.
That's true. But I think the fact that he always existed with that love of the game and personal acceptance of himself as not being the best anymore, and not needing to be the best, but just wanting to keep doing good tennis.
Yeah, I did like that, and I thought that was a good way to put as her equal, almost, is her opposite. But also so similar, because they both played tennis at a professional level. So I just thought that was really creative writing by her. Another relationship I want to talk about is Nikki and Carrie. So when Carrie comes back and she's going after Nikki specifically because Nikki just stole her amount of Grand Slam titles, she's coming back to reclaim that record. That's the whole point of her comeback season for her. And Carrie believes that it's hers. Whereas Nikki's like, nah, girl, I earned this. It's mine.
Everyone earns a new world record. That's totally the thing. Hey, Carrie, there's someone who had more titles than
Totally.
you prior than you.
Exactly.
Like, that's not stealing a record.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, they both have a point, because Carrie comes out being like, well, I had to do all of this to get you to that point. I had to be that, like, because Carrie Soto, she's a person of color, right?
Yes.
She's Latina,
Mhm.
Latinx. How do you say that?
Latinx, I think, is
I don't
the
know,
go.
Anyways, and then Nikki Chan is Asian, and so she comes in, and Nikki's like, it's been so much harder for me, and Carrie's like, what? It was hard for me too. Like, they both are very much so, like, in that mindset. I'm the best. I'm the only one who struggles, because I remember they have a conversation. I'm like, girls, it's all hard. You're women in sports. Like, it's hard for either of you. But Carrie thought that she was like, that title was hers, and then Nikki was like, no, it's mine, and that was their whole battle. But the weird part is this is the first time that Carrie actually makes a friendship with another player. So her and Nikki grab a drink together. They, like, when, spoiler, but when Carrie's father Javier passes away, Nikki is like one of the first ones to text Carrie. She's the only other athlete other than Bo who even checks in on her.
I do wonder, too, when it comes to Carrie's relationship or friendship or lack thereof with other female professional tennis athletes.
Yeah.
If it was because she had such a sense of, I'm the best, I need to be the best,
Yeah.
that she almost saw that they were all beneath her in a way. Like, she would see these, like, ranking of, like, 12 or 13 chumming it up in the changing room and being like, oh, look at these losers.
No, I don't think Carrie was an
Better.
asshole.
She
If
was-
that's what you're
I
trying to
think
say.
she was. Well, I'm not saying she was an asshole. I'm saying it makes sense for her to become friends with Nikki Chan, because there's that same
She sees
sense
her
of
as an equal.
respect there.
Interesting. I don't know, because she was never nice to Stepanova. She fucking hated Stepanova, and they would have been equal. Stepanova would have been above her. She had more at the time. That's who she took the record from.
But I think that Carrie still saw herself as better at tennis
Well, yeah, she
than
was.
Stepanova.
I don't know. I think that Nikki's the first one who had the same attitude as Carrie. That she was like, fuck this, men get away with everything. But Nikki was slightly more loved by the audience. But Nikki still was kind of an asshole.
Yeah, I feel like what you said earlier, too, about people of color.
Yeah.
I saw a TikTok, actually, on the way in about someone giving flack to Taylor Jenkins Reid, or saying that there is flack being given to Taylor Jenkins Reid for being a white woman for writing women of color.
She does, because Evelyn Hugo was a woman of color, so was Nina Riva, and then now was Carrie Soto, but Daisy Jones wasn't.
Yeah,
I
and
don't know, that's hard.
I mean, yeah, but it's also kind of like, I feel like flack would also be given if she only ever wrote
Yeah.
white protagonists.
I was gonna
too,
say,
so-
I was trying to imagine if all of these characters were white. I was like, that sounds extremely boring and undiverse for the readers. So that's tricky.
Yeah. And I don't know, I found it interesting that
Well, you're a person of color. What do you think of this situation? Does it bother you that she's writing people of color?
No, I think that an author's job is to inhabit the lives of other people and, you know, tell their stories.
Yeah.
It would be a little different if here's like a white woman writing this story about, I don't know, like a slave's life.
Yeah.
And then like getting things wrong and
Yeah.
not doing the proper research, or even really like doing it at all. Like, is that really your story to tell? But when it comes to this kind of a thing, I think it's okay. I think it was.
It seems a little bit tricky because I've definitely heard that too about Taylor Jenkins Reid. I actually forgot until you just brought it up, but I have heard people say stuff like that about her. And I mean, I'm a white woman. I never really know. Like, I feel like it would be, it's hard. Like, which way do you go as her? Like, do you go with no diversity? And then I feel like no matter what, there's always going to be like some sort of, I don't know. I feel like I'm even struggling with words right now because I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah. Well, and so was the person doing the TikTok and saying all this. In the comments, whenever anyone was like, hey, you know, like, I think it's good that there's diversity, the TikToker would just respond, and she responded the same thing to multiple comments with the same, like, oh, hey, you know, like, I'm just reporting that this is what other people of color like many people of color seem to be writing in reviews.
Yeah.
But I was thinking too, it's like you're only going to hear the vocal people in this, and the people of color who are okay with a white woman writing a Latina protagonist aren't going to like really say anything about it. It's just like, oh yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
But the people who are opposed to it will say something. So it is kind of squeaky wheel.
It is. It feels different. Like for me, for the Taylor Jenkins Reid books, if I was to compare it to a book like American Dirt, did you ever read American Dirt?
No.
So it was by Janine Cummins, who's a white woman. The story is about this Mexican woman who's trying to escape Mexico and the Mexican cartel. And she's trying to get safely over the border into the States, but illegally because she can't be tracked. She can't take planes. She's doing all these crazy things to try to escape with her son. And it's like this really, really good story. So I read it and I'm like, I wonder if this is a true story. So I went and looked it up, and it's written by some white woman. And I was like, that gave me an uncomfortable feeling, because immediately I was like, she stole that story from someone. 100%. No white woman could have written the way that this woman wrote about this experience. Like, it was just, so she got absolutely destroyed about like writing that book. But for some reason, I don't know why, and I could be biased because I love Taylor Jenkins Reid a lot. It's just, it does not feel the same as that for me. Like, it feels more like she's just being inclusive with her characters while not using their culture as like a main story point for Taylor Jenkins Reid to write the story about.
Yeah, and even in that example too, I feel like that would be all right if it comes from a place of you meet someone who has this amazing story, this lived experience that you then want to, use in a book about that to like bring light to that situation, but like with the proper credit. And it's kind of like the author lending their writing ability to someone who has this story but doesn't have the ability to tell it.
It's complicated.
It is very complicated.
It's like, yeah, it's one of those things. But I feel like we went on a tangent about this, but
at
the end of the day, this one feels more gray area than black and white for me compared to other books and other situations.
Definitely.
In my opinion. To jump back into relationships, should we talk about Javier and Carrie's relationship arc? Because that's throughout the entire book. That's the biggest relationship. Yeah. Obviously, we both love Javier and we love Carrie.
Yeah, and I feel like you can't have their relationship without bringing Tennis into the picture.
Tennis is the center of it, yeah.
The fact that part of the way through her career, he was like, hey, you don't need to be the best. You need to be okay. Or I guess it was part of the way through her comeback more. Him being like, you've proven yourself. You've done so much. I'm so proud of you. You don't have to like win the what's it called? The championships or the titles, slams, slams,
the records,
to like prove that you're awesome. And she's like, she had it drilled into her head so much that no, like I do need to be the best. And I do wonder how much of that like is being held on to the fact that your dad told you as a kid, hey, like we're doing this thing, me and you. This is our bonding experience. And yeah, you can be the best, Carrie.
Yeah.
So
I really think he regretted that though.
Oh, absolutely. But like, even though he's saying now you don't have to be the best, how much of it is like, well, for Carrie, I still want to make my dad proud.
Yeah.
Even though it's the dad of, downtown Vancouver, everybody.
Yeah.
Even though it's the dad of her childhood, which I think sticks with you a little bit more than, the dad of your adulthood.
Yeah, I think their relationship was really complicated too, because he was her coach and her father and her best friend, her only friend. Like, he was literally everything. And then Javier had said from a child that she would be the best. And then when she didn't deliver, she seemed to blame him. So then she replaced her father, which to me was like such a big betrayal.
Yeah, that's such a blow.
That was brutal. And the way I get that Carrie was young, but the way that she went up about it. And it was because she asked her father if she could be the best. And he said, I don't know. I can't predict the future. Like, essentially, like, I don't know what'll happen. And he wouldn't tell her what she wanted to hear. So she dropped him, which was crazy because Javier cared so much about her. I think there was like, he said stuff like, my heart hurts when my heart hurts when you hurt because you are my heart. Or he said something along those lines. Like, Javier was just so sweet. And Javier also kind of got famous. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he wrote a book.
Yeah. So he kind of dealt with fame as well a little bit throughout the series, and he handled it really well. He was getting recognized, and Carrie was very loved, and Carrie wasn't. And I also think that when she left to go to the other manager, I do think that there was some jealousy, because it was around the time when Javier was so popular. He was on late night shows, remember? And she wasn't, because everyone didn't like her, but they loved her father.
Oh, I forgot about that part.
Yeah, so I do think there was like a little bit of jealousy in that relationship, even though it's complicated and it's technically her father and her coach. I think there was like, that's a bit of it too.
Yeah, I think at that point too, Carrie was probably seeing him more, like viewing him more as a coach than as her dad, but Javier always viewed himself as father first. And it is tough, too, for him to have told her as a kid. Like, it's easy to tell a kid, like, yeah, you'll be the best if you just train really hard. Because they're kids, you know?
Yeah.
But Carrie obviously took that very much to heart. And then when she asked him again later, when she's actually playing and, like, an adult, and he's like, well, you know, like, there's a lot of variables.
Yeah, literally, he wouldn't tell her. I think at that point too, he also realized that she was taking it. It was like not healthy. How like intense she was about the game. I think he started to see at that point and was trying to like adjust to like help his daughter, because I don't think Carrie ever lost that like unhealthy drive for winning until Javier died.
Well, I think
that was the catalyst that like.
I think it's kind of a larger question when it comes to professional sports and athletes.
Yeah.
Can you get to that place without it being somewhat unhealthy? Like your drive or, the amount of life that you put into it and dedication.
Bo was able to do it.
I guess, but
I just think that Carrie, like, yes, there has to be a level of unhealthy commitment to the sport where it's like as over what other people put usually into other activities in their normal life. But I don't think it needs to be at the level Carrie took it.
Yeah, but Bo wasn't the very best.
No, that's true.
Do you need to take it to that level to be the fucking best?
I don't know, Chan. It feels, but anyways,
and is it worth it? That's I think that's a big question too. But that's
the thing is, when she lost her father, I think that if Javier hadn't died and then she'd still lost to Nikki Chan, I think it would have been a very different outcome if her father had have been alive. I think that her father's death was like the what is it called? The straw that broke the camel's back for her to realize there's more to life than tennis.
Yeah, but also I love the fact that I just got goosebumps because I thought about it. The fact that she found his book, like not the book that he wrote.
The father's book for training.
Yeah, for training. And so to her, it became, well, now, like, here's me and him together again. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go off of his suggestions and his training. And it crushed me.
Yeah, like, that was, and everything he said is Carrie can win underlined. Like he did know she could win, and like I think that's just, it was so sweet. I really loved it, and I loved their relationship, how they were able to heal it. Mm-hmm. And if he wasn't her father, I don't think they would have. And
I do think too that like after he died and she found the book, and because remember he died and she was like, I'm out, like I'm done. Yeah. Like she went into a bit of despair.
Fair.
And then she finds the book and she's like, okay, I can do this. And I think that was the point where she went from, I want to do this for the legacy, I want to do this to be the very best. She did it like for him after that, and she did it for the game.
Yeah, it changed. That's what I'm saying. It was the catalyst.
That's why it was okay for her to lose at the end.
Yeah, and I think that was such a character arc. I think that like Taylor Jenkins Reid is great at a good character arc. Like look at Daisy Jones or, you know, Nina Riva from the previous ones. But Carrie is the most obvious in my opinion because it happens quite quickly at the end. Like she obviously does grow when she has to retire and she has the surgery. There is growth there, but she really grows right after her father dies. And it really does change her character. I think that if she had the mentality she had during her final season earlier on in her career, they would have never named her the Battle Axe. She just like had a different energy about it, but she also probably wouldn't have had the drive that she had to become the best.
Yeah.
It's tricky. It's a double-ended sword, and is it worth it? You're right.
Plus, I just love the name Battle Axe.
Were you surprised when Carrie lost to Nikki or disappointed? Like, how did you feel as a reader?
I kind of expected it to happen.
I did not. I thought she was going to win,
and
and then I thought she would retire and just go out and be like, "Oh, one, okay, bye."
Nah,
because she was the underdog and she was older.
I think maybe that's why. Maybe it's not just like the sports aspect of it, but maybe that's also why people aren't as into this book, because I feel like I kind of had this hunch that she wasn't going to win because I know. I know sports stories. Yeah, and that's usually what happens when it comes to this. But she made it
so far that it was still excellent, though, at her age.
Yeah, but for contemporary romance, usually everything works out, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I was honestly kind of glad that it ended the way that it did, and I think it had to, because it had to show that Carrie was okay with that.
Yeah.
Because she did, prove herself. She did all that, but she didn't have the full, like, I am the best, I'm the world record holder.
Yeah.
Even though it's like, you do that, Nikki's just going to go play next season.
I know, that's the thing. She would beat her record next season when you can't keep up anymore. It's tricky. I did think that it was interesting that they brought in the dynamic. This is pre-Bo, obviously. Actually, it's post and pre-Bo. But when she has the affair with Brandon, who's Nina Riva's husband from Malibu Rising, when she has the affair, that's around the time where she's at her worst too. Like, I think that Carrie Soto is at the core a really good person, and I think that she was raised well by Javier. Mm-hmm. And I think that without his influence in her life, she dates the Brandon guy, she has the affair, she is like ends up fucking up her knee, she becomes like the meanest she's ever been in the sport, but she also becomes the best. So it's like her worst time, but then in her mind it was her best because she won. So it's like kind of interesting there. And then Javier wasn't a part of that.
It does make me wonder too, like perhaps she would have been capable of becoming the best and getting there while sticking with Javier.
Yeah, I think she could have, for sure.
But to her, she thinks like, oh, well, I need to be...
I think she put the blame on him.
I need to be the battle axe. I need to be mean. I need to be ruthless.
Maybe.
To get there. It's like, you might have been able to make it there without all that.
Well, I think we both know, especially like in real life tennis, that you can be the best and not be acting the way that Carrie did. It's just, I think that Taylor Jenkins Reid was making a point against, I mean, we've talked about it, but women in sports, which is just everything. I also think this is a really interesting time for us to talk about a woman in sports book at the time where right now women's sports is sometimes being more watched by men's sports in some leagues right now. Like, it's really on an upswing where women are finally getting some credit, not the credit they deserve. In my opinion, they deserve more, but they're getting a lot more credit. And like, even looking at like Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, like she's taking over the sports world right now, and she's a woman, and it's like disrupting the ecosystem in a way, and I'm loving it. So having a book that's like about Carrie Soto and her acting, kind of mean, and it's making a discussion for you and I to talk about, when really like that's not even a thing, she can act however the fuck she wants.
Of course.
I love that. Out of her core four, so Evelyn Hugo, Daisy Jones, Malibu, and Carrie Soto, what's your favorite? Will you rank them for me, please? Okay. And thank you.
Yes, I will.
From
go
least to favorite.
Least to favorite? Mm-hmm. Malibu Rising. Still love it.
It's number 4.
Gotta be number 4. Yep. Evelyn.
Oh.
Then Daisy, and then Carrie Soto is back.
Whoa, mine goes Malibu, Daisy Jones, Evelyn, then Carrie Soto.
So it's pretty similar. We just got the middle two swapped.
Yeah, which is crazy because I don't think the rest of the world will agree with us.
What makes Evelyn over Daisy Jones for you?
I made that decision because Daisy Jones is, especially the book version, is just a little bit unlikable that I had to put Evelyn above her. Like
like the character of Daisy Jones.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like for some reason when I finished Daisy, I mean, I loved the writing style though of that book, but this, for some reason, Daisy Jones just left me with more of a blech feeling than Evelyn Hugo did, which I know, and I think it's a beautiful book, don't get me wrong, but Daisy, like book Daisy, is a fucking mess. And for me, it's just for some reason, I loved Evelyn. I loved the LGBTQA plus like whole, you know, theme in Evelyn Hugo. I thought it was really well written, and I just loved that book, man. I can't.
I think for me, so much of these books are about the setting, and they're about the decade that they're in,
frame,
and the worlds that they inhabit. And I enjoyed Evelyn Hugo and Malibu Rising a lot, but I just
you love
put
music
rock
too.
star 70s rock tours and life. Like, I think it says something about how much I like Carrie Soto that I didn't put Daisy Jones over, like, as number one.
That's how I feel about going over Evelyn.
Because I also love books that are, I think it's called epistolary, where
never heard of it.
It's like a different type of narrative. I love that Daisy Jones was through interviews with different people, and there were different perspectives and different accounts of what happened. And from that, there is no actual truth of what's going on. You have to kind of like figure out what actually happened based on what everyone else is telling you, and no one account is going to be the fully correct one.
But that's the thing too, is with Evelyn Hugo, it's you're only getting Evelyn's point of view and everyone else is dead, so who the fuck knows if that's real either.
Well, I mean, that's kind of how most stories are, right?
I guess
like
so.
We're only seeing Carrie Soto from Carrie Soto's perspective.
But it's different. We're not living it through Evelyn Hugo, we're living it through Monique's eyes.
Yeah, we're living,
and Evelyn's telling the story. That's why TJR is a fucking genius.
Yeah, I do love that she changes up the narrative style quite a bit.
Oh, it's so good. Do you think that she's an auto-buy author for you? Like, would you just automatically buy TJR's books going forward?
I thought you were shortening autobiography, and I'm like,
no.
Wait, what? Like,
no, like auto-buy. Like, will you automatically buy her books?
Oh, yeah. At this point, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I'm excited to read the work that she's done prior to this. I know that they're definitely different genre I've read after I do, and I know that there's other ones to get through.
Yeah.
That I'm sure we'll be talking about. Yes, definitely.
Sure. Okay, so is there anything else you want to say before we wrap this guy up? Wrap up TJR?
Well, it has been lovely to exist in the TJR universe.
Oh yeah, it was so good. I love the crossovers of them.
Yeah, you don't see that very often, I don't think. Like,
no.
When there is crossover, there
is
usually
an Emily
more.
Henry, which we're talking about next. So those are her books. I'm pretty sure
I don't know
is.
if I've ever picked up on that.
I'm gonna Google it because I think it's a little bit more subtle.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure there is some crossover. But I just want to say thank you guys for joining us on this episode of Read the Room. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Wow.
And
hello.
don't be as strict as I am with my Bookstar reviews. Please leave us 5 stars if you enjoyed us.
Be like I am with mine. Everything's 5 stars. Your feedback means everything to us, and it's how we keep this podcast I can't. And just don't forget to connect with us on social media.
Is it really how we keep this podcast going? Because we haven't even started the podcast, so we have no feedback at all.
Yeah, but can we keep doing it forever without anyone telling us if we're any good or not?
We're just doing it for Megan Carly.
It's true. This one's for Megan Carly.
We do get feedback from them, though.
I actually told my mom that we were making... Oh, my God. Make me so nervous. I told my mom we were making a podcast, and she was like, I can't wait to listen. And I was like, you have never read any of these books? And she's like, yeah, but I love you. And I was like, well, so my mom's going to be listening too, even though she's never read any of these.
My mom definitely will not be listening.
She might. You're not going to show her?
No.
Okay. Anyways, follow us on social media.
Right, we'll
let's do this again sometime. Bye.
Bye.